So there's four groups of problems in section 1.8. We just did the first, this is the second. What the second group of problems have in common with the first group is the right side is 0. What it doesn't have in common is the left side isn't factored. In order to get the answers, I need to get the left side factored, which means I have to remember how to factor, and well, I'll just plow through. So each of the problems between 22 and 42, the first thing I'm going to do is factor the left side. And in this particular problem, I can sight factor because it's a trinomial, but there's not a number other than 1 in front of the first term. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to 45, that add to negative 14, and they're double negative. So I'm looking for double negative numbers that multiply to 45 and add to negative 14. Let me find 45 on my sheet. The pair that I'm going to find here, oh, you can't even see them yet, are either negative 1, negative 45, negative 3, negative 5, or negative 5, negative 9. I'm going to pick the negative 5, negative 9. Here's a double negative factor, negative 5 and negative 9. If I multiply those, they give me 45. And if I add those, negative 5 plus negative 9, I do negative 5 plus negative 9, that gives me negative 14. So I'm going to factor the left side. I'm sight factoring. I'm splitting the x's in the two parentheses that I'm going to write. Inside the parentheses, I'm going to put one with a negative 5, the other with a negative 9. Now I have the problem written in the form of problems 1 through 21. Left side factored, right side 0. Anytime you can get that set up, left side factored, right side 0, then I can get the answers by taking the factors, or the insides of the parentheses, and setting them equal to 0. The x minus 5 factor, to isolate the x, I'd have to add 5 to both sides. Hopefully you could do that in your head and not show this algebra. The x minus 9 factor, I have to add 9 to both sides and get x equal to 9. I'm going to check this just because this is the first one in a grouping of problems to show you that I can check and how I would check. I have to separately check each number. If I want to check the x equal to 5, I take both x's in the original problem and make it 5. Safe to do it with a parentheses. So I'm going to take the first x, get rid of it, put a parentheses where it is, and put a 5 inside that parentheses. The second x, get rid of the x, put a 5 inside the parentheses, plus 45 equals to 0. This gives me 25, which is 5 squared. 14 times 5 is 70, so minus 70 plus 45. I'm at the point now where I don't care to do this, so 25 minus 70 plus 45. I get 0, so I know that answer is correct. Similarly, if I check the 9, if I want to check the x equal to 9, I'd have to make sure that 9 squared minus 14 times 9, just taking each one of these x's and changing them to a 9, plus 45, I'd have to make sure that equals to 0, and why wouldn't you check on your calculator? So let me do this. 9 squared minus 14 times, it doesn't look like 9, but it is, plus 45. If I hit equals and it says 0, my answer is right. If I hit equals and it doesn't say 0, I've got a mistake. Oh, the mistake is I wrote 99 here. Idiot. So when I hit equals, I'm like, oh, I made a mistake because it has to come out to be 0. Well, the mistake wasn't in my algebra. The mistake was in my button pressing. So let me get back and change that to a 9. Now that's what it's supposed to read, and it actually works perfectly. So we can check every one of these, and I usually don't check every one unless I'm really worried about my factoring. So 24, I'm going to start off, I'm going to sight factor. I'm going to need numbers that multiply to negative 7, and it's the adding that's really subtracting to 6. And in this level, I need a plus and a minus. Big number is plus, small number is minus. So my choices for the factoring really are 7 and negative 1 because those multiply to negative 7. And if I do 7 plus negative 1, That's really the same as 7 minus 1, which is going to be 6. So when I do my sight factoring, the numbers that are going to go in the parentheses are a plus 7 and a minus 1. I'm going to start making my two parentheses. I'm going to split the x squared evenly between the two parentheses. And the numbers that I determined, plus 7 and minus 1, will go in the parentheses. I should just write down x equal negative 7 and x equals to 1 because it's quicker, and most students can do that. But if you can't, the proper algebra is to take the insides of each parentheses, set them equal to 0. The x plus 7, the proper algebra is to minus 7 from both sides. The x minus 1, the proper algebra is to add 1 to both sides. Not going to check it, but for 24, the answer would be x equal negative 7 and x equal to 1. 26 and 28, I've got to factor the left side. It's a binomial. Binomials are either squares or cubes. This is definitely a square. To figure out what goes in the two identical parentheses, except one has a plus, the other has a minus sign, I'm going to divide the exponent of y by 2 and get y to the first. I'm going to square root 81 and get 9 on my calculator. Square root 81 and I get 9. I'm going to create two identical parentheses, one with a plus sign, one with a minus sign. I'm going to put the y's up front, one with a plus, one with a minus sign, and after those signs, the 9. And now I'm going to solve these. First, I'm going to do y plus 9 equal to 0. Second, I'm going to do y minus 9 equal to 0. For the y plus 9, I'm going to minus 9 from both sides and get y equal to minus 9. The y minus 9, I'm going to add 9 to both sides and get y equal to 9. For my answer, I could say it's y equal to negative 9 and positive 9. Usually, if you get a positive and a negative of the same number, you do this, semi-shorthand and write a plus or minus preceding that number. Both are fine. Hopefully you can do each of the problems on this sheet, 23, 25, and 27. Let's do 28 together. 28 is a square with a minus. I need to factor it. To factor it, I need to square root 25. Square root of 25 is 5. I need to divide the exponent of x by 2 and get x to the first. I need to square root 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. To the left of the signs, I'm going to get a 5x. To the right of the signs, I'm going to get a 4. This is going to factor into one parentheses with a plus, the other parentheses with a minus, but both parentheses have a 5x and a 4. Now that I have it factored, can set the insides of the parentheses equal to 0, do 5x plus 4 equal to 0, and 5x minus 4 equal to 0. The 5x plus 4 to get it solved, I'm going to minus 4 from both sides and get 5x equals to minus 4. And then divide by 5, divide by 5. That's going to give me x equals negative 4/5. The 5x minus 4, I'm going to plus 4 plus 4. That'll give me 5x equals to 4. And then divide by 5, divide by 5. That'll give me x equal to 4/5. The answer is positive and negative 4/5. The nice way to write that is plus or minus 4/5. 30, 31, 32, 33 have ugly factoring because it's a trinomial, but it doesn't have a 1 in front of the square term. Let's do 31 together, and we'll even check this one. For 31, I have to group factor because of the 5 in front of the x squared. I'm going to start off multiplying the lead coefficient by the constant and getting 20. I'm looking for numbers that are double plus, that multiply to 20 and add to this 9, and that's just 5 and 4 because 5 times 4 is 20. and 5 plus 4 is 9. So I'm going to take the 9x in the problem and rewrite it as 5x plus 4x. So I'm going to take this problem and write it as 5x squared plus 5x plus 4x plus 4 equals to 0. And then I'm going to bring in my parentheses because I'm doing grouping. First parentheses, I'm going to factor out a 5x and be left with an x plus 1. Second parentheses, I'm going to factor out a 4 and be left with an x plus 1. You should always, if you need the time, pause the video, do the work, and then watch me do it. Unless you're completely confused and have no idea how to do it, you should actually do that more often than not. Pause the video before I do a problem. Try it if you think you know how to do it. If you get it right, then you're in a good place. I'm going to finish up my factoring, but I'm not done because the problem has an equal sign. I expect to get numerical answers that should be checked, but I don't always check. Now that I have it factored, I'm going to split the factors up. I'm going to set the x plus 1 equal to 0 and the 5x plus 4 equal to 0. The x plus 1, I'll minus 1 from both sides and get an answer of -1 that I'm going to check. The 5x plus 4, I minus 4 from both sides and get 5x equals to -4. I divide by 5 and get x equal to -4/5. I claim the answer to number 31 is x equal to -1 and x equal to -4/5, but I'm not sure that that's right. Let me check the x equal to -1. And I'm going to do completely a calculator check because it's a nuisance to check by hand. So I'm going to do is 5 times, change that x to -1 in a parentheses squared, plus 9 times, change that x in a parentheses to -1 plus 4. Does that equal to 0? And then in a second, I'm going to see if, when I check the x equal to -4/5, I'm going to see if 5 times parentheses -4/5 squared plus 9 times -4/5 plus 4 equals to 0. Usually if one works, the other works. Let me do the easy one. So 5 times -1 squared plus 9 times -1 plus 4. That's the top checking. And that gives me a perfect check, gives the left side 0, which it needs to be. Now I'm going to do backtrack and delete fraction -4/5, back arrow, delete fraction -4/5. So I have in what I have written, just did it more efficiently. And when I hit enter, I get 0, so I know my answer is right. If I didn't get 0, then either I typed it wrong on my calculator, and I need to check that, or I made a math error and I don't have a right answer. All right, let's do 33 together. Pause the video, try to do 33. Not going to check my answer, but I'm going to write an answer down for you to check. So let me start 33. I have to group factor. I'm going to start off multiplying the lead coefficient times the constant, and I'll get -6. I need numbers that multiply to -6 and add subtract to -5. And the small number needs to be plus, the big number needs to be minus. My choices would be 1 and -6. Those are plus minus multiply to -6, small number plus, or 2 and -3. Those multiply out to be -6 as well. Now I need to see if 1 plus -6, which is the same as 1 minus 6, if that equals -5, or if 2 plus -3, which is the same as 2 minus 3, if that equals -5. The bottom one, 2 minus 3 equals -1, that's not the pair for grouping, but the 1 minus 6 gives me the -5. That is the pair for grouping. So when I go to do my grouping, I'm going to take this -5x, and I'm going to write it as 1x. Instead of plus -6x, I'm going to write it as 1x minus 6x. And when I have a negative and a positive, the order is my choice. I like to do the negative first and the positive second. So when I do my grouping factoring, I'm going to split this negative 5x into that. So now I'm going to get into factoring. I'm going to go 3x squared minus 6x plus 1x minus 2. Still have the equals of 0 that I can't forget, or shouldn't forget. Introduce my parentheses. Work for my common factor. First parentheses, common factor of 3x. When I factor out the 3x, I'm left with an x minus 2. Second parentheses, no common factor, I'll factor out a 1 and be left with an x minus 2. The right side is still 0. Then I'll finish up my factoring. I need the common factor and what's in front of the common factors. If from here you can get the solution, don't show this work. If you can't, do the work. If you can't, then go ahead and do the work. But if you can, do it in your head. Do this in your head from here. Save some time. The x minus 2 factor, I'd have to add 2 to both sides to get the solution from it, which is 2. The 3x plus 1, I'd minus 1. That would give me 3x equals to negative 1. And then divide by 3, divide by 3. That'll give me x equal to negative 1/3. These will check if I didn't make a math error. I don't feel like I made a math error, but I know I make them probably every video. The answer should be x equal to 2 and x equal to negative 1/3. I like separating them by a comma. So many problems, too many problems, but it is what it is. How about we start skipping periodic problems? Let me do 35 with you. Pause the video, try to do 35. I'll write something down so you can check. 35, I need the group factor. I'm going to multiply the lead coefficient 2 by the constant 3 and get 6. I'm looking for plus numbers. They have to multiply to 6 and add to 5. My choices are 2 and 3. Those are plus. They multiply to 6. And 1 and 6. Those are plus. They multiply to 6. 1 plus 6 adds to 7. 2 plus 3 adds to 5. So I need the 2 and 3 pair. The 5x in my problem, I need to split up to 2x plus 3x. So I'm going to rewrite this with 4 terms and get 2x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 3 equals to 0. Introduce my parentheses. First parentheses, I'm going to factor out the common factor of 2x and be left with an x plus 1. After the plus sign in the second parentheses, I'm going to pull out a common factor of 3, be left with an x plus 1. Then write my common factor of x plus 1, followed by the infronts of 2x plus 3. I'm not done because I don't have numerical answers. When a problem has an equal sign, you need numerical answers. Now I'm going to set the x plus 1 equal to 0. Just get that out of the way. I'm going to minus 1 from both sides and get x equal to minus 1. I'm going to set the 2x plus 3 equal to 0. I can do that in my head. But if you can't, the algebra would be the minus 3 from both sides. That would give me 2x equals to minus 3. And then divide both sides by 2. That will give me x equals minus 3/2. So for an answer, they should check. I'm rolling the dice and not checking them, which is bad. If I had access to a computer that I can get on, I would just check the answers part of my webpage for chapter 1. You can do 37. I'm not going to do 36 because it takes so long. I'm going to do 40, which is the twin of 39, rather than 38. 40 and 39 are squares with minuses. So to factor, you have to square root the numbers. The square root of 16 is 4. You need to divide the exponent of the letter by 2. And so in problem 40, I'll get a 4b to lead off my parentheses and a 5 to end my parentheses. And one parenthesis will get a plus, the other will get a minus. Now that I have it factored, I'll set the factors equal to 0. I'll do 4b plus 5 equal to 0, 4b minus 5 equal to 0. Now I'm going to minus 5 and divide by 4. This is going to give me 4b equals minus 5. Divide by 4, divide by 4. That gives me b equals to negative 5/4. The 4b minus 5 plus 5 plus 5. That gives me 4b equals 5. Divide by 4, divide by 4. That gives me b equal to 5/4. The answer are negative and positive 5/4. Usually when you have that kind of answer, you get efficient and write your answer with a plus and minus sign. So you should be able to do 39. I'm going to go ahead and do 41 with you. So pause the video, see if you can get through 41. To get started on 41, I'm going to multiply the 3 and the negative 2 and get negative 6. My template tells me I need plus minus numbers, big number plus. They have to multiply to negative 6, and they have to add, subtract to 5. My choices would be 6 and negative 1, that's big number plus, small number minus, multiplies to negative 6, or 3 and negative 2, big number plus, small number minus, multiply to negative 6. If I add the 3 and the negative 2, that's really the same as 3 minus 2, which is 1. That's not going to be the right pair. If I add the 6 and the negative 1, that's really the same as 6 minus 1, and that's 5. That is going to be the right pair. The pair that I'm going to need to split the 5y up into, the 5y that's in this problem, I'm going to write it as 6y minus 1y. And when I have both a positive and a negative, I like the negative first. So I'm going to make it negative 1y plus 6y. So I'm in the process of getting ready to factor by grouping. So this 5y I'm going to split up. I'm going to take the initial problem of 3y squared, change the 5y to minus 1y plus 6y, leave the minus 2 and leave the equal to 0. Introduce my parentheses. First parentheses is a common factor of a y. It'll leave me with a 3y minus 1. Second parentheses, there's a common factor of a 2. Will leave me with a 3y minus 1. Finish up my factoring. I have the common factor of 3y minus 1, and what's in front of the common factors of y plus 2. Have that equal to 0, so I'll solve each parenthesis separately. I'll do 3y minus 1 and set it equal to 0. That will give me positive 1/3. I'll solve y plus 2 equal to 0. That will give me negative 2. If you do that in your head, don't do this algebra. The 3y minus 1, I'm going to plus 1 from both sides and get 3y equal to 1. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and get y equal to 1/3. The y plus 2, I'm going to minus 2, and get y equal to negative 2. For an answer to number 41, I'm going to write y equals to, I guess that's positive 1/3, and negative 2. I can check every single time, and it's super safe, especially if it's a test, to check, because then you know you're not making a mistake. You can be guaranteed of a right answer. That's kind of the case for all the problems on this test. The test is either factoring, and you can multiply out to check, or solving for x, and you can plug on your calculator to check. So I'm going to pause the video. We're definitely going to have 4 parts to this. This is part 2. We'll have a part 3 and a part 4.